Leadership, level 3, effective project, connect with our audience, to practice the skills, to connect with the audience by presenting an unfamiliar topic to club members. The time is 5 to 7 minutes. Discipline, process, map and confidentiality hierarchy. Our speech, our speaker for tonight, Mr. Renan Ercilla.
Hi, good evening fellow Toastmasters and our guest for tonight's meeting. Maybe some of you not familiar with yet that I am in the field of human resources. Lately, I am tasked by my senior manager or our director to handle and lead the automation in one of my functions, the case management process. And in order to do this, I have to present with the Indian team or our HR, co-HR folks in India, because we are partnering how to automate the discipline process or case management process with my current company. How many of you right now familiar with how discipline process works? Or is it new to your idea? Okay, so this is what I'm going to present to you. So let me share my screen. This is how discipline process works with our company. And we know when we process the administrative case of one employee, it requires confidentiality. And it is not my first time to do an automation, because I did this before, but this is very first time with my current company. And when we automate one's process, it requires confidentiality, especially for the administrative cases of the employees. So let me discuss first what are the corrective sanctions based on the table of offenses. This is how the cases works with the Conduent, because all of the cases not handled by human resource in our company. There are separation of cases. From minor, it's solely handled by the operations, and for the serious cases, it handles or with the intervention already with the human resources. So first, let's discuss how the discipline process works through mapping. If sanctions or the possible sanctions only of the one case, it's first, second, or final warnings. It's only warning, so it's only a minor cases. And in due process, it requires twin notice rule. And how it starts. So the case management or the discipline process starts in receiving the incident report. Who receives the incident report? The immediate manager. And then what the immediate manager do a preliminary investigation to determine the validity of the alleged violation or de-escalation. And then if after the immediate manager determine it through investigation and it warrants the issuance of the first notice, the immediate manager has to create notice to explain or NE, and the manager approves it. And then after the manager approves it, it should send to the employee for acknowledgement, and then the employee has 5 calendar days to explain for the alleged violation. And then after the employee explained, without exhausting the 5 calendar days, the immediate manager has to determine the answer or examine the answer of the employee over the alleged allegation or violation. And then he has to draft the notice of decision, which is the second notice that requires in twin notice rule. And then before it could send to the employee, the manager or the second line manager needs to approve it. And then after the approval of the next line manager, it would automatically go on the bucket or the actionable item of the employee whether to acknowledge or refuse it. So let's say it was acknowledged by the employee, so that's the time that the NOD or the second notice would go to the bucket or the actionable item of the immediate manager in order to close the case. But how about if the sanction is a suspension? It's almost a same flow, but the difference only before the notice of decision should send to the employee for acknowledgement, it needs to be reviewed by the human resources first in order to review this and approves the notice of decision and return the second notice to the immediate manager. And then the immediate manager needs to send it to the employee for acknowledgement. And then after that, the second notice or the notice of decision would return to the actionable items of the immediate manager to receive the notice of decision and close the case. And the case or the discipline process ends with this. But when it comes to termination at the offenses, which is the maximum penalty for the administrative case, so it still starts with the incident report, and then the immediate manager do a preliminary investigation, and then after preliminary investigation, the immediate manager should create the NPE and ask the approval of the manager. But within this part, since this is a termination, of course, there's an intervention already of the HR. The NPE or the drafted NPE of the immediate manager that approved also by the next line manager should be reviewed as well by the human resources and HR or on my part, I need to review it and approve this and then before they could send to the employee for acknowledgement, and the employee has 5 calendar days to explain on the alleged violation that would possibly result to termination of employment. And then once after the employee submitted his response or written explanation, an admin conference or administrative hearing should be conducted in order to give ample time for the employee to explain on the alleged violation. And then after the administrative conference, there is a deliberation that would happen. And then if the deliberated decision, let's say the maximum penalty, the HR is the one who needs to draft the NOD and approve it with the lawyer. And then after it was drafted and approved on the end of human resources, it should be sent to the managers for their signature also before they could send to the employee for acknowledgement. And let's say the employee acknowledge whatever the decision of the management, and then the immediate manager receives the signed NOD, and then he needs to submit it to the human resources to close the case. This is the first part only on in order to automate our discipline process. I need to show how discipline process in Conduent Philippines in my current company to the India, because they are the team that tasked to automate. Affiliated by the process of automating the case management process or discipline process, it's the confidentiality. And I have to articulate also with them how the confidentiality hierarchy works. Let's start with the supervisor. The supervisor handles employees, of course. There are times that the supervisor needs to issue and discipline the employee, of course. And the confidentiality starts with this because the other supervisors shouldn't see the cases of the other supervisors. The next level that has that needs to have an access on the confidentiality is the manager. And then next is senior manager. And then the SBU manager, meaning SBU service business unit manager. It is the director or director of the operations. And in order to automate it, it's not my first time. It's first time with my current company. That's why I am very articulate in explaining everything with them in order for them to understand what is the requirement and discipline process that we want to automate in my current company. And that's all. I hope that you got something of what I have presented. Thank you, and back to you, our Toastmasters of the week.
Wow, thank you so much.
Mag-subscribe, ring the bell, mag-like, comment, at i-share mo na.